Sahana bhavatu, sahano bhunattu, saha viryam karavavahai, tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Um, so, we were studying about meditation. Meditation requires the presence, obviously, of the mind and intellect. Intellect is discrimination. Mind is a flow of thoughts. When the mind has a flow of thoughts, there is two things. There is the flow and there is the silence. So only as long as the mind is there can the intellect be there. If for whatever reason the mind is not there, intellect cannot be there either. Mind can exist without intellect, but intellect requires the presence of the mind to exist. In the sense that there has to be discrimination. There has to be two things or multiple things for discrimination to take place. You cannot have discrimination unless there are two things. Because discrimination is the capacity to tell the difference between X and Y. So if there's no X and Y now, what are you going to tell the difference? Suppose there's only one thing, like deep sleep. There's nothing, right? In deep sleep itself. So what are you going to discriminate? It's not possible. So what have we studied so far? That the mind is a flow of thoughts. Intellect is discrimination. That means it is awareing that flow. What is the final flow of thought in meditation? It is just the chant of the mantra Om. So what is that last discrimination we are doing? Silence and chant. Silence and chant. Silence and chant. Or chant and silence. Chant and whichever way you do. That's the only discrimination that is going on. Now, for that discrimination to take place, the mind has to be capable of being on that one thing. Whatever it is, you can say. Most common is, of course, Om. You can say Om, Om, Om. You see, there's a silence in between. So therefore, your intellect can discriminate. But the mind has to be capable of that. The mind today is in a chaotic state. It cannot stay in a field of thoughts. How do we expect it to stay on one thought? Like if anybody who comes to this class is capable of keeping his or her mind here for the whole 1 hour, you probably don't need the class. You just keep the mind there. Now you may say, and people do say, no, my mind is there in the class. It doesn't move away. But that doesn't count. Why doesn't it count?
Because you're just engaging in indulgence, you're not following the flow of thought.
You can't say that so much, but yes, you're right. You're putting it not very tactfully, but yes, you're right in the understanding. Because not enough that your mind is there. What is required is that your intellect is maintaining your mind there. If merely the mind is there, that is becomes indulgence. And indulgence creates
More desires.
desires.
Very good. And our whole purpose is in this is
Reduce desires.
Reduction of
reduced.
desire.
Correct. So we are on the wrong track. Now you come to the right track, which is mind is there. The mind may like to be there and therefore be there, but then the intellect has to be awareing it. It's not like the intellect has to constantly be fighting to keep the mind there. No, it's good if your mind is interested, but the intellect also has to be present. Right? Mahesh, you have a question on this idea, or I'll finish this whole thing and then you want to ask your question?
Yeah, you can just about the mind and intellect, the mind being there, the mind needs to be there for the intellect to be present. Just want to ask a clarification on that.
Okay, go ahead.
No, when you, I mean, say you're reasoning something, say you have a problem that you're working out, say a mathematical problem that you're thinking about. So you don't need anything from the mind in that case. And is the mind needed for that? And you're thinking of a problem, we don't have anything from the senses coming to you. I'm just curious.
Mahesh, who can answer Mahesh's question? He fell for it. Who was concentrating enough to answer Mahesh's question?
So the mind is a flow of thought and the intellect discriminates between the flow. So even when you're solving a math, like the thought comes to you and your intellect will discriminate between the thoughts. So it's still the mind because the mind is the flow of thoughts.
Yeah, but Deepraj, sorry, very good. Your answer is very good. But what it should have been, could be a more technical way of putting it, is what did Mahesh just do? In terms of thinking itself, what did he just do? Now is a test for everybody who attended. How do you know what you know?
I didn't actually hear the question very correctly, but I know that based on, did he just beg the question? Did he just turn around and say
No.
exactly,
Oh, begging the question only Deepraj could have done, which he has not done.
Okay.
Mahesh cannot beg the question because
he's questioning.
He's the question.
He has used the words incorrectly.
Very good. He just changed the definition. He went back to an older definition, which was it is emotion. Right? You're still continuing with that. There's emotion involved. But now we have switched definitions. We've gone to mind is a flow of thoughts, to which now Mahesh will say, how can you do that? How can you switch definitions? Right, Mahesh? You're bound to say that. We didn't actually switch the definition. Mind is a flow of thought is the original definition. If you remember, all emotions stem from
Desire?
Mind.
Mind. Presence of mind.
All emotions stem from
Interrupted desire?
All emotions stem from what comes before a desire?
Thought.
Thought. Yes, thought, remember? Thought leads to emotion. So a lower level definition of the mind is it is emotion. But a more precise definition of the mind is it is a flow of thought. Because only when that happens can their emotion come about. So we didn't change the definition. We're just going to a higher standard now.
No, but
Okay.
isn't intellect also a thought?
Intellect is also a thought, correct?
I'm sorry, someone at the door.
Okay, and that ends this discussion.
Sorry, I mean, I'm alone at home, so I had to, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, isn't the intellect a thought too? I mean,
Yes, it is a thought. Remember, you seem to erase everything from the past. What is the definition of mind?
flow of thought, as you said just now.
Flow of thought, correct. All right, that's our definition for mind. Intellect is
discrimination.
Discrimination. So
But it's a
discrimination is
thought too,
also a
right?
thought. Yes, it's also a thought, but it's not described in terms of a flow. It's described in terms of differentiating, discerning, telling apart.
So all that reasoning is happening in the mind?
No. Reasoning is part of discrimination. No. The flow of thought.
No, I got that, but I was just not sure that the mind is needed for the intellect to function. I was just not in meditation. I understand that, but in a general sense, I was just wondering because you're thinking about the problem and you're reasoning, and you don't need anything from the mind. That's
You
why I
need
had
the
the
flow.
confusion.
You need the flow of thought. But even if you say no, for whatever reason you say no, that's really not necessary. That's also okay, because currently we are only talking about one discrimination for which you need the mind. Otherwise,
Yeah, for
how will you
meditation,
discriminate?
yeah. For meditation, it's clear. Yeah, I was
Okay.
just thought in general. I was just curious in general.
Only if you use the definition flow of thought. As long as there's a flow of thought, there's a mind. You are taking it in a different sense, like emotions, likes and dislikes, and all of that. You're taking all of that, but we are not talking about that. There's a flow of thoughts.
Yeah, that's fine, but I'm just, yeah, I mean, so when you're reasoning, only the intellect is working, right? There's no need for the mind to be there.
Again, you're saying mind to be there. What is your definition of this mind which is there?
No, but intellect also, we said, is through thoughts, right? We agreed that
Right.
intellect could thoughts,
Right.
and the intellect could use those thoughts to reason. It need not depend on the thoughts of the mind, flow of thoughts. I don't know, I mean, flow of,
There has to be a flow of thoughts, no, in reasoning.
yeah, but intellect is also thoughts, right?
Right.
So it could be a flow also if you take reasoning as a flow of thought.
What is the intellect distinguishing between? It's
Yeah,
Flow
that's
of
what
thoughts.
I mean. Reasoning,
Distinguishing between flow of
flow of thoughts. There is a flow. Even your reasoning, right? You say 2 plus 2 is 4. Where did this come from? This came from the mind. Now your intellect can discriminate and say, why do we say 2 plus 2 is 4? You say the grass is green. Where has this thought come from? It's come from the mind. Because that's the flow of thoughts that's come from your past. You say this
No,
is
but-
Deepraj, this is Deepak. Where is it coming from? It's
no,
the
those
flow
are
from
fine because you the mind has to get this but you're just doing just abstract reasoning. You're thinking of a proof of some Pythagoras theorem and you're working it out. So
Okay.
those thoughts somehow come into the mind, and then this intellect
not-
discriminates. So,
No, it's not somehow coming to the mind. You're holding this idea that there's some box called the mind. There's a flow of thought. The flow has come from the past, like you already know there is, I don't know, whatever. What I forgot what is Pythagoras. The hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the square of the other two sides. You know this. This thought, which you already know, is the mind, is the flow of thoughts, is the mind. Now you will reason upon it.
that's confusing actually because
No, because
mean-
you're not leaving the old definitions. That's why you're finding it confusing.
yeah, but I mean, this definition, I'm not sure how it fits in because, I mean, eh, when you reason, it's a sequential, you start from some point and you go down. So, I mean, how will the mind bring these thoughts in sequence? You have to reason. I mean, the mind can't flow and start the proof and then the intellect takes over and then checks whether it's correct or not. I mean, I'm just wondering how the mind can do that.
Thoughts which come from the past are the mind. You started your reasoning at some point which you claim is the known point. Now you're delving into some unknown thing. So whatever was the known, that's the mind, because that's the flow. And then now whatever delving you're doing, whatever discovery you're doing, or new thoughts you're doing, is your intellect.
So the new thoughts are in the intellect or in the mind?
Not in, forget in, because that is what is causing the problem.
No, it's fine. I
The
mean,
thoughts which
the
have
new
come from the
thoughts are-
past, the flow of thought is the mind. as you start delving into some unknown things, which are as yet unknown, that will be called the intellect.
So the new thing is the intellect. I mean, is the function of the intellect. The new discovery is the function of the intellect. Except that you need the mind for. I mean, I thought maybe you could use memory for that, but you need
Where
a
is
mind.
memory?
Yeah, that's a tricky thing because is it in the mind or it's in the chitta? I don't know. I mean, there's
Now
some.
you introduce a third thing. This is how you get confused. You introduce
No,
all
I mean, mind is memory in the mind. I mean,
yes.
that's a contentious issue. It's not really accepted by everyone. So, but okay, but if you accept that the memory is in the mind, then I suppose it's okay because you can think of sort of you think about the current knowledge and then go ahead. Yeah, then it's fine. If you take memories in the mind, that's fine. It's kind of no issues. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. So coming back, let's start again. There is the mind, there is the intellect. Mind is the flow of thought, intellect is discrimination. Now, in meditation, what is the flow of thought? Just the chant. What is the discrimination between the chant and the silence? Up to this point, everyone's clear, right? Now comes, okay, great. So now comes the next step, which is slightly more difficult, which is that for the mind to chant, that single thought, it already has that ability. Okay, Bharat, Ajay, personal Q&A, take the yeah, okay, I'll bring the narrative back. Don't worry. But Mahesh will miss the whole class if his question is not answered then. Whole class will go in him thinking that. So we have dealt with his question. So come. Mind has to have the capacity to be able to think of one thought. Today's mind is so chaotic that we cannot keep to one track in a conversation. Forget trying to keep to one mantra. One conversation. In one conversation, you'll see this, people are all over the place. And that's in a conversation when you're with somebody else. When you're thinking your own thoughts by yourself, where has this mind gone? When the husband says, I don't think we can go to a movie today. This is what he said. What is going on in the wife's mind? Yeah, he's always like this. If that one had asked, he would have easily gone. But I've asked, so he can't go. He's always been like this. Always I'm giving second-hand treatment. Even when the mother-in-law was there, he would always prefer her. And she was not so nice either. I mean, she had good qualities, but she wasn't so nice to me as she was to everybody else. And remember that auntie? My God, what kind of auntie was that? And all this reminds me of how in school also they used to treat me so badly. And my school years were really horrible or really good. Bapre, bapre, bapre. Where has this gone? This is how we think. There is no beginning, no end. You take a project, working project. Nobody thinks that project through to the end. What happens if this happens? What happens if that happens? What are the various things? Think. Feel like doing something? Set off. Hundreds of things. The mind is in a chaotic state. All over the place. Now, how can such a mind be told to meditate? It makes no sense. So first, the level of desires has to come down and the mind becomes capable of the chant. Okay, chalo, now you've got a mind which is capable of the chant. Have we done? No, not yet done. Because if the mind is capable of thinking one thought, it is equally capable of
Indulging in that thought.
indulging in that thought. Because remember, this capacity of the mind to indulge is with you all throughout. In childhood, it indulged in toys. In teenage years, it indulged in that. In adult life, it indulged in that. In old age, it indulges in that. This capacity of the mind to indulge is always with you. And therefore, even in the seat of meditation, it is still there. It hasn't gone anywhere. It is still there. People indulge in everything, even their own illnesses. Have you ever heard people telling you about their illnesses? This becomes one samsara for them, of its own for them. Indulging in illness, indulging in sorrow. People are in love with their sorrow. They'll divorce their spouse, but they'll never divorce their sorrow. If my sorrow, it is my claim to fame. I am not going to let it go. Whatever it is I'm miserable about, I am going to keep that alive in my mind. So the nature of the mind is indulgence. And this is there in the seat of meditation too. And your only recourse against this indulgence, whether now, whether earlier, or whether in the seat of meditation, is
The intellect.
the intellect. Now, the intellect also must have this capacity to hold that thing. You think my intellect is struggling at the moment to hold my mind, indulging in, I don't know, rasmalai or something. Just think about what's happening in the seat of meditation. The entire force of thought, which was distributed among the billions of things, has now got concentrated on just one thought. We seem to think that that final thought is a very shallow thought. No, it is the sum total of all. See, all the thoughts are got, their power has come to that one thought. Now your intellect has to be strong enough to hold that one. So your mind has to be developed, the intellect has to be developed. What has the mind been developed into? Reaching single pointedness. What has that intellect been developed into? The capacity to hold that single point. Yeah, Deepraj.
Well, why do we say that the currently our mind is branching off and it has different like elements and all that, and that, but when it gets concentrated, does it really get concentrated? Because the density also reduces. No, because
Does it?
the bulk of thought has reduced, so the density has to reduce because right.
Think about it. What happened with the law of conservation of energy?
Changes the form, one form to another form.
So at each step of the spiritual ladder, your desires intensify.
At the moment, they're very shallow desires, right? What is the desire? However much you desire a rasmalai, what is its capacity? When Shahid Bhagat Singh desires independence for India, what is the capacity of that desire? There is a qualitative difference in the desires. And qualitative difference means greater power.
So the force of thought is equal at each stage. It is just that at the lower stage is distributed and at higher stage is concentrated.
Yeah. At the lower stage, it's all shallow thoughts, right? It'll jump from here to there. See, you suppose it's a child. Child is crying, boo hoo hoo. You say, wow, dekho, kawa dekho. The child forgets about its tears, right? Mahatma Gandhi is under extreme sorrow about what do you call this? Partition.
Partition.
Can you show him a crow and remove that sorrow? It's way deeper, right? And it will last longer.
But then they also get calmer, even though their desires have been intensified.
Yeah.
I would have thought that because their desires are more intense, like their agitations will also be more intense.
Their agitations have decreased. Their capacity for feeling has increased. Okay, so would a person, I don't know what is that? What was that lady's name? Forgot. Indrani. Indrani have greater power of love or Mahatma Gandhi? Intensity of feeling has increased, no? Who will have more love? Us or I don't know. Anyway, Mahatma Gandhi, or I'm just using the same name. Give any other name, please. So your depth of feeling will increase.
But why has their agitations decreased? Because that intense desire, if it gets blocked, the agitation experience when a shallower desire gets blocked will be much more.
Yeah. Agitation means interruption agitation, like that sorrow. Yes, of course. If Mahatma Gandhi doesn't get independence, what will be his sorrow compared to what will be your sorrow if you don't get a burger? The intensity will obviously matter. But in spite of the intensity of that, the calmness is also more. You can feel great sorrow and be completely calm.
How is the calmness more? Because the calmness is independent of the mind. That's why the calmness.
No. Calmness is always of the mind. Calmness is the result of level of desire. See, even if it's a Duryodhana, even if his desires are being fulfilled, he doesn't know what calmness is. Even his happiness is very agitated. I mean, I don't know, you go to these weddings and all, sometimes you really wonder. One wedding, there was a destination wedding. So for family reasons, we had to go. Those people were opening people's mouth. I heard because I went to sleep. I had to register my presence, and so I registered my presence and then I went to sleep in that hotel only. I heard in the morning that people were opening people's mouth and putting the bottle in their mouth only. Straight away. Oh my God. I mean, for me, it's oh my God, but for them, it was oh, we had a great time. So even their happiness seems very agitated to some people. They're so happy and dancing, singing, very, very happy, very, very delighted with this whole thing. But it seems quite a lot of agitation to a bystander. So
But
it's not happiness, it's what should I don't know how to put it, it's not qualitative differences.
how
In the Kamba Ramayana, when Rama was leaving, the description of Kaushalya when he's leaving, that thing makes every Indian cry no matter how many times they hear it, is Rama is now being banished and he's leaving. And how Kamban Raman describes it is, he says, she stood there like a cow whose calf was taken away from. Compare that to that Rudali and all of them singing, like beating their thing and going on, crying and sobbing and weeping. Difference. The dignified sorrow and what should I say, the not so dignified sorrow.
But where does that come from? Is it because the identification with the personality has reduced?
Reduction of desire. Calmness is always reduction of desire. Internal calmness. We're not talking about this upari happiness. The internal calmness that you are capable of experiencing is directly proportional to your desires.
Yeah, to the reduction of desires, but how does that work? Because
How does that work? Is it established that it works like that? Okay. that we can see qualitative differences. This much is established. Now, how you work
Yes,
out
we
for
can see
yourself.
the examples. Yeah, we
Yeah.
can see the examples.
Right. So now, what is the exact mechanism by which it works? You can do your research and find out. Because level of desire determines degree of calmness. Okay, whatever is happening to the desire determines the emotion that plays. I mean, the emotion is a modification, right, of the desire. So, to the extent you don't have it, you experience calmness. To the extent you do have it, you experience the modification. And of course, because you're a human being, all this is going on simultaneously. It's not like, first you experience calmness, then you experience emotion. It's all happening simultaneously.
Thank you.
Okay, so coming back, there is a flow of thought. The intellect has to aware the flow of thought. If the intellect does not aware the flow of thought, it is indulgence. And when it's indulgence, it creates
More desires.
desires. Very good. So intellect has to constantly supervise the desires. As the desires are supervised, the desires reduce. Exactly the same thing happens in meditation. As this thought is supervised, slowly it goes down into longer and longer periods of silence. And then the silence just elongates into self-realization. That is only possible if this thought itself, if all thoughts have become this thought. Now, this thought has, you have created distance between that chant. And then finally, it is just silence. That's realization. Now, this silence which you have found is not a silence that goes away no matter what happens. It is always and permanently with you, regardless of any action, regardless of any emotion, and regardless of any thoughts. That is realization. It is very different from the ecstasy that sometimes people experience, which is big, feel great, and then you're back to square one. Yes, Prashant, you have a question?
Yes, so what I heard just now, Jankim, that the silence kind of internal silence kind of grows. Is that what we mean by spiritual growth as well?
Yes, but we don't define it like that. This is a manifestation. The silence is a manifestation. Spiritual growth is defined by reduction of desire.
Yeah. So when in Gita, Krishna says that with every birth that you take, whatever effort you have actually put into the previous birth towards your spiritual growth, you don't lose that, and in the next birth, basically you start from where you left. Is that all tied to this concept as well, the internal
It's
silence?
exactly the same thing. Suppose you began this life with 100 desires. Okay. In this lifetime, you made your desire 150. So, and you died. Then next Janma, you start with 150. Suppose you began this lifetime with 100 desires and you reduced it to 10. Then next Janma, you start with 10. So that's what he means by your spiritual growth goes with you. Means your level of desires will continue. Okay, so this is clear. If the mind goes in its direction by itself, it is indulgence. If the intellect awares it, it is meditation. If the intellect awares it, but the mind has more than one thought, this is known as
Concentration.
very good. It's known as concentration, right? So many thoughts and intellect present is called. What happened?
Trans.
What? How can it be trance? Listen carefully. Many thoughts and intellect present is called
Concentration.
Concentration.
very good. One thought and intellect present is called.
Meditation.
Meditation.
So which one is easier?
Concentration.
Concentration, right? Can you learn meditation to do concentration? Senseless idea, whoever came up with it. Right. Now, suppose you have many thoughts and the intellect is not there. This is known as
Indulgence.
Dungeons.
very good. Suppose that one thought and the intellect is not there, then
Trance.
trance. Clear? So you have 4 different things that can be happening. Many thoughts and intellect present, concentration.
Yes.
One thought and intellect present, meditation. Many thoughts and intellect not present, indulgence. One thought and intellect not present, trance. So you see, if you go sometimes to the temple and all, you'll see these people going like that, like that. And that happens because they have just fixated on the ideal, but the intellect is not there. So they go into trance. And all the other illiterates around them will go and touch their feet and all, saying, oh, what a wonderful thing you have done. But Vedanta gives them 50% because they are managing one thought. But that thought is not under the governance of the intellect. Yeah, Prashant.
Sorry, ma'am. One thing I wanted to ask, what determines that it is my intellect, or it is still, or my awareness is still in the flow of mind? I mean, thoughts are going to be there. How do one can affirmatively say, yeah, I'm discriminating because I might still be thinking about 2 things. Is the action a predeterminer, or
No, of
desire?
course not. No, it's effort. If you are paying attention in class, you're putting in effort. If you're enjoying the class, where's the effort? It is, you know, the effort you're putting in, right? You know, I have been studying Sanskrit for many years. After I study that Sanskrit, it's really tough for me. I study it, I feel like I've done a workout. You're struggling with each thing, with samas, with sandhi. I feel like I just come out of a gym. After your class, after your Vedanta class, if you feel like you have come out of a gym, then you have to put an effort. Otherwise, you just, oh, so nice, I love the ideas. And then somebody says to you, okay, what did you learn today? What was the new thought you had? No, you come to class because not registered anything. Right? So effort, intellect is always effort. Mind is no effort, chill, relax. Like even for a teacher who takes the class, they can just keep talking whatever they want because they're relaxing. But if even the teacher has to put an effort, it is work. I mean, you know after you finish that you have put in effort. It's not just mind has gone wherever you wanted. How do you know now? So in terms of class or in terms of intellectual thinking, you know by knowing whether you know the what now? Whole class should
Flow
be
of
able to.
thoughts.
Very good. If you know the flow of thought, where did we start? What is the channel we took and what was the conclusion we reached? So you know that if you are concentrating. If you are not concentrating, you will have one idea from the class or 2 ideas from the class. I like that idea, I like that idea. But you don't know what is the total.
So that again, coming back to the definition, intellect plus flow of thoughts is concentration. My question was, what determines, sorry,
Intellect with the flow of thoughts, with intellect, putting an effort on a field of thought, not flow of thought. Flow of thought can be one also, no? Then a field of thought is concentration on a single thought, is meditation.
Yeah, my question, ma'am, was how do I get to know that it is intellect or it is mind?
I told you, no? You're merely repeating your question, Prashant. You remember what the answer was? Can you tell me the answer in one word? Now you know that no intellect was present, right? This much you know now. Chalo.
Intellect needs effort, mind is just chilling.
Very good. Intellect means you will have felt that you're putting effort. Your brain will feel like it's lit. That is intellect because you're putting in work. You're not just when you are what is this thing called? When you are scrolling on your cell phone, do you feel like you worked after that? Ah, yeah, just mind is taken over. You don't even remember what it is you scrolled. When you go to work and you're forced to do something productive, then you feel different. No, you feel different.
So again, a goal is necessary for intellect.
Usually, of course, yes. Otherwise, why? What would your discrimination be?
So even, yeah, I mean, again, coming back, paying attention to this class, my goal is to kind of understand the concept, and therefore I utilize my intellect to look at the field of thought, to come up with a concept or a reason or a theory that will be in the zone of intellect. Is that what we're saying?
No, in terms of class, actual attendance of class, your only role is to pay attention to the whole thing. Then when you go back to your reflection mode, then you do all this other stuff. At the moment, there's only input of information. So you have to make sure that your input of information has to be correct. Like for instance, you converted the word or field into flow. You know, if you change one thing like that, the whole discussion can go off. So it is up to you to be very, very careful that you actually absorb the right idea. For which you should have the book with you because you know that, whatever is being said is pertaining to what is going on over here. You have to have your notes with you so that you have written very good. So check. You have to have your notes so you're following the line of thought. Even later on, you can't remember it. Your notes will remind you. Nowadays, of course, it's all online. So many people go back and listen again. But the thing is, there has to be a lot of precision in taking in information. Because remember, you are going to live your life based on what you learn in a philosophy class. So this is the single most dangerous activity you take up. I don't know how many people realize how dangerous it is to go to a philosophy class. One wrong idea you have to get, your whole life will be messed up. And similarly, some good idea you get, your life will be improved. So you have to ensure that you don't take any wrong idea because you're messing around with your brain over here. So you can't afford to just be very, casual about it. Some nonsense goes into your head, which because you misheard. Maybe the class was saying it wrong, but you just misheard it. Mess up the whole thing. And you can see that's happening, right? How many people are messing up big time because they're going to religious studies? I mean, all the way from becoming a terrorist to leaving their family and going to the Himalayas, the whole gamut of it exists. So this is a dangerous activity. It requires you to be on high alert.
I have a question now. So, in a scientific way, right, in a science methodology, they classify the brain into various zones. Like you've got a limbic brain, which is like very primitive, then you've got
Prashant, if you say any more, I'm sure Ajay Kasotia at least is going to say, can you take these personal Q&As at the end of the session? Right. So we have to stick with our current flow of thought, or you can ask at the beginning of the class. Not at the end, at the beginning, we can finish all general questions. Now we are focusing on this. That mind is a flow of thought, intellect has to Watch the flow of thought. If the flow of thought is on a field, it is concentration. If it is on a single thought, it is, anybody can answer, it is,
Meditation.
Meditation.
right? So everybody on scale up to this point, right? Now, shall we read the next paragraph? Because the more I talk, the more I encourage you to talk. So let's get to the text. All right, so far so good. If anybody has a problem in this flow of thought, bring it up now so that you can follow the rest of the thing. Now, who will read it? Yes, please go ahead.
Uncontrolled, indisciplined thought flow is mental indulgence, whereas controlled, disciplined thought flow is concentration, is meditation. Both are flow of thoughts, but of opposite nature. They produce conflicting results. Mental indulgence increases your desires, while meditation raises your desires. They act like diarrhea and purgative, seemingly the same but with the distinct difference. Diarrhea is a disease, while purgative is a remedy. There, likewise, thoughts running after the world unchecked by a discerning intellect increases your desires, creates mental instability, whereas disciplined thought flow governed by the intellect decreases your desires. Finally, the practice of meditation annihilates your last desire and regains your supreme self. So, my understanding on that is if so, thoughts will continue to flow, but if the thoughts are flown in the governance of the intellect, then those are productive thoughts. What's the word? Concentration. Otherwise, it's just going to be, I mean, if they're just randomly flowing without the governance of intellect, then those are going to be um, just mental diarrhea, it might say. So, and they also express the difference between the diarrhea and a purgative, that one is used to cure the disease and the other one is a cause of the disease. So that's why the intellect's role is important.
Okay, good. Omkar, you had said effort. Very good. In one word, you had answered. Correct. Right. So back to Prashant and this para. Yes, if the thought flows by itself, it is indulgence. It creates desires. Oh, Kalyan couldn't hear you. Oh, I'm also summarizing, Kalyan.
No, I've heard, but it's a little low. Yeah.
No, okay.
I'll take care of that.
All right. So when you speak a little louder. Right. So when the intellect directs the flow, you are concentrating or meditating. This reduces desires. When the intellect does not direct the flow, you are indulging. This increases desires. This is true for the whole journey. Today also it is true for us. If my intellect is directing the flow of thoughts, I'm going to be reducing my desires. If my intellect is not directing my thoughts, my desires are simply going to rise. Then I say that, oh, but I'm attending Vedanta classes. It is not by attending Vedanta classes that anything is going to happen. Nothing is going to happen. 40 years you will attend and you'll be exactly in the same position, except that you would have learned everything by heart.
Yeah.
So it is the effort the intellect puts in to direct the flow of thought all the time in life. Not sometime, all the time. It is a filtration process that has to be always on. Like your kidneys, they're always on, right? They don't take a break. If they take a break, you will end up in ICU. If your intellect takes a break, there's no saying where you will end up. It has to be consistently there at all times. When we are constantly directing the flow of thoughts, the desires reduce. When we do not direct it, indulgence increases. When indulgence increases, desires increase. It all seems the same. That's why Prashant is asking, how do you even know which one you're doing? Because all seems exactly the same. Now, whether you've got diarrhea or you've taken purgative, seems the same. But they're two very different things. So it's difficult sometimes, but you should know for yourself, are you putting in any effort? If you are putting in effort, that means you are engaging the intellect. Now you may engage it well, you may engage it badly, it may be a good quality intellect, it may be a bad quality intellect. All of this is
Effort.
all of this is
Concentration.
actually, y'all are listening. I said, as long as you are, as you will feel effort, as long as you are engaging the intellect. Now, your intellect may decide rightly or wrongly. It may be a high quality intellect, it may be a low quality intellect. All of this is,
Uses application.
it is all useless to decide. Point is, do not think about it. Oh, but is my intellect good? Is it bad? Am I deciding correct? Am I deciding wrong? All this is futile talk. All that is all that is necessary is,
The effort.
have you engaged? Have you engaged the intellect? Now you take a bad call, it doesn't matter. You know something? Nature is an extremely kind and compassionate thing. You take bad decisions also, sometimes it works out okay. Right? But take a decision. It is important that you are engaged, your intellect is engaged in taking a decision and executing it, rather than doing what you feel like. And that is the whole trick of life. Does that mean you'll never make a mistake? No, you make lots of mistakes. That doesn't matter. Your desires are not dependent, your growth, increase and decrease of desire is not dependent on what happened. It's dependent on whether your intellect was engaged or not. You could have, you could be a lucky person and your parents may have given you very good habits from early childhood. In which case, you will be doing many good things and correct things, and your life will go well. But you will not grow spiritually. Or you may have been given bad habits from early childhood and not been trained well, and your life is becoming a big mess because you've all bad habits. But if you start engaging the intellect, you will still grow spiritually. So it is not your past that is determining it. It is what are you doing today? Are you engaging the intellect or not engaging it? So the moment you engage your intellect, you are in control of your mind. And when you don't engage the intellect, yeah, indulgence is going. So Deep Raj, when it says that the desire reduces, does that mean the desire goes down to zero? Or does it mean that it goes down to a highly manageable level? Both. First, it will become manageable and then it will become zero. I mean, it can't become zero until it has become manageable, right? In other words, if your desire is, I'm just making up these figures, okay? Let's say your desire is at 50%. So it'll have to go to 40, 20, 10, and then zero, no? Like if you had money in the bank and you were spending it, then it will go down step by step as you spend it.
Here we're using that. Then here we're using desires as an uncontrolled thought.
Desire is always uncontrolled.
Yeah, but I was using it in the terms of vasanas. Like you still have a vasana for it, but it is no longer uncontrolled, it's fully controlled.
No, it's both conditions are there. Why would they have to be? Why do you have to insist it has to be one? As long as you're at that level. Okay, take a child. There is a child who is uncontrolled with reference to toys. This child will have to become controlled with reference to toys. Then the child becomes a teenager and has no interest in toys.
No, but then he has to grow spiritually
Of
to
course.
have that.
Yeah.
So there are two mechanisms. One mechanism is you get a higher desire, and by that you uh, get rid of the lower desires. Now that makes sense to me. But to use the intellect at a particular spiritual level to get rid of that desire itself did not make sense to me.
You're not getting rid of that desire directly like that. First, you're bringing it under control. Once you bring it under control, you are able to become more objective about that desire and able to figure out does it make sense, not make sense. You're able to see it. As you start reducing the intensity, the futility of desire starts becoming apparent. When you are madly in love with a girl, she seems to be a pari from outer space. After you have been married to her for 5 years, this parihood has gone down quite a bit. Right? Now you can be more objective because the bhoot sawar nahi hai.
Ma'am,
Right?
why isn't this actually taught in marriage vows or ceremonies? I mean,
It is.
I mean they so when I was married, right, I was told that yeah, I got to run it basically through the entire life and that's it. But then the
You have
example,
to. That is what it means, engage the intellect. Otherwise, every day you then why get married? Then you have live in relationships because you're not engaging. If you're engaging the intellect, then you now live with this person, you committed yourself, live with the person. Why did you commit yourself? Don't commit yourself to things that you are not going to live up to. Marriage is one of the best things for engaging the intellect. Every day they are there to bug you. So you have to engage. Engage. What should I do? Now I'm married to this person. We both have to be happy. I cannot say I will have my way, and the other person cannot say I will have my way. Now we are forced to negotiate a deal between us and somehow manage to live in some degree of harmony. But people don't. You don't like movies. I don't want to. I like movies. Nah. You have to engage the intellect. Figure out what is the way that both parties can be happy. Is there a way? If there is no way, then let us happily part. But if there is a way, let us find it and execute it.
That's why it is called engagement.
Sorry?
That's why it is called engagement.
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 Okay. Engaged. Okay.
The विवाह को जो बोलते हैं ना.
Okay. Mahesh, I don't think we are going to have time for your question, whatever it is.
Okay, can I continue because I still
Oh, you're not finished. Oh,
I'm not finished. Okay. So but the desire to get married is still there. It is just that maybe now it's more managed. We still don't know from that scenario. We're assuming that it's now managed, but that desire is still there. So tomorrow the marriage breaks. He's gonna find another partner. Maybe this time he's gonna do it in a better way. We don't know. But when you grow up spiritually, that desire may be there and maybe gone. So that's a different level where you have extinguished that desire. You're no longer managing the desire, you're just extinguishing it. So are these two different mechanisms, or am I just creating a superficial divide between them?
One mechanism is you are at that level and you're managing it. like so many, like these, what is this, corporate executives and all. They want to make money and they're managing the desire. They're managing it means they work on it systematically. They work very hard. They go to the Stanford MBA or whatever stuff they do. They work very hard. They have a clear goal. They work out how to get those things and they go for it. Right? Now, let us say this person does it. Now, as he does it, it begins to occur to him that it wasn't a big deal at all. When this thought comes to him, now he will look for something more. Some people will look for more of the same. Some people will say, no, I think this is just going to repeat the cycle at a higher level. So I need another answer. So when he thinks of that, if he ever thinks of that, then he will go towards spiritual growth.
Got it. Now it's clear. Thank you.
Jankiji, I had a little story to share, which I thought was
Story?
quite, no, it's relevant to the class. And it's that about Oscar Wilde, when he says that when he has a chocolate sitting in front of him and he's really dying to eat it, and his mind is focused, just as you say, just on that desire to eat the chocolate, that he usually wouldn't eat it. And then till the intellect was involved, when it was merely the mind that he was dying. And then he would decide. He said, then I'm the master. In one case, I take the decision when I want to eat the chocolate or not. It's not the chocolate that's the master. It's me now, because I've put in that effort to engage my intellect and take a decision of yes or no. The chocolate stops being the master and I become the person in control.
Yes, correct. Bharat.